Greg Brentnall from Wagga Turvey Park. Number 2, big 14.5 stone winger Eric White from Dapto. And on the other wing, another 14.5 stone player, Terry Fahey from Wellington, number 5. Number 3 is Mick Cronin. Number 6, Ian Martin, has come out. He's a former Manly player. And there's Steve Hewson, the very promising young halfback from Queanbeyan United, Steve Hewson. Number 8 is the lock forward John Ballasty, former Eastern Suburbs 5'8", playing lock forward for Country today. Number 9 is Ron Fogarty, former Newtown player, now playing with Port Kembla. Number 10 is Steve McDonald. And there's 11, Len Bertoldo. Steve McDonald is from Wagga Kangaroos. Number 11, Len Bertoldo, Griffith Waratahs. Number 12 is Alan Dagwall from Newcastle West, the hooker. Another young fellow who's come to Sydney with a big reputation. And then we have 3 coming out together here, Mick Cronin and Peter Kennedy. Cronin number 3, Kennedy number 4, the centres, and number 13 is the captain, Jim Morgan, former Eastern Suburbs and South Sydney player, and now playing with Queanbeyan United, the Country captain. So the 2 captains now. With the referee, Richie Humphreys. The coin has been tossed. In a moment we'll know who has won. Is Richie Humphreys. The kick-off is by Mick Cronin, Australia centre for Country, and my co-commentator once again is Les Johns.
Great game coming up, I think, John, especially with Country having first use of this breeze. They have a chance to get in front early.
Well, they're going to have to play extremely well to get in front, because this is a very, very powerful Sydney combination. And that's Rhodonicus down on his own quarter line, playing the ball for Sydney. Arthur Beetson now taking play into the ruck, but unable to get rid of the pass, and that's what the Country boys will have to do. Get right around Beetson, smother that pass, prevent him from getting the ball away. That's Stevens, second row forward. And it's McMartin at dummy half. Beetson caught by Dagwall. This time he gets it away nicely to Fairfax standing up. That's Brannigan. Caught by Kennedy, the Country centre. Kennedy playing for the 3rd time for New South Wales Country in Sydney today. He played in 72 and 73. Bob McCarthy down in the 6th tackle. So the first scrum of the match, midway between the quarter line and halfway on Sydney's side of the halfway line.
Alan Dagwall, the Country hooker, will be a key player here today if he can get some of the ball.
Rhodonicus feeds the scrum, but it's a Sydney ball. Rhodonicus lost it for a moment, but it was a knockback. That's McCarthy. Playing in an unaccustomed role for him today at prop forward, although he has played there. It was Ron Coote, by the way, not McCarthy, but as I was saying, McCarthy in the front row today. Not a role to which he's really accustomed, although he has played there, both in representative teams and for his club, South Sydney. Play about 12 metres on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Pickup playing it to Beetson. Caught again by Dagwall, who makes sure of hanging onto the ball this time, with some assistance there from the lock forward Ballasty. McMartin. The kick is by McCarthy, and he'll find touch. I don't know whether that's exactly what he intended to do, but he's found touch a few metres on Country side of halfway.
Dagwall, also a very good player in the open, has the ability to pick the ball from dummy half and make good ground. Now the Country forwards have got to get with him if he is able to do this today.
Country's ball in this time. Hewson serving the scrum. He's been recalled. And there's the first penalty of the match against Country for allowing that scrum to move back and off the mark. And it's Bobby Fulton taking the kick, looking for the line. And he's found touch just inside the quarter on Country's end of the ground. Now this puts Sydney right on the attack. McMartin dummies to Beetson, got it to Sate, McCarthy, Coote, out towards Schubert, but well picked up there by the Country winger, Terry Fahey, just outside his own quarter line. Bertoldo at dummy half. And it's not a big Country team when you consider that Len Bertoldo is perhaps the heaviest man in the Country team, and he's dwarfed by several of the Sydney forwards. Penalty to Country, and that's against Sydney for not allowing Bertoldo to play that ball. Brentnall, who is a noted long kicker, should nearly kick this ball out of sight. Country in possession, just on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Dagwall to Bertoldo. A few metres in Sydney's half now. Dagwall at dummy half. Ballasty, the lock forward. Morgan. Mishandled by Fogarty, but still Country's ball. Ballasty back onto that one. This is Hewson, and he's going to be a danger man for Sydney. Through Beatson's tackle there, but well stopped by Schubert and McMartin. Country in Sydney's half now. Ballasty back into the forwards nicely. McDonald, the 18-year-old second row forward from Wagga, held in the tackle that time. And this is the winger, Fahey. To the Country quarter line, to the Sydney quarter line, the sixth tackle and the scrum to go down.
Now, if Country can make breaks like they did in the last couple of minutes, those breaks then are going to give them plenty of confidence that they can pierce this City tight defence.
It's going to be Country's ball. Hewson. Too much defence there for him. Coote and Rodonicus. Now that's Fogarty. Back to McDonald, but forward to McDonald. Penalty against Fogarty for that deliberate forward, and that relieves the pressure for the Sydney team. Now it's Fulton again to kick for touch over on the showground side of the field. Not gaining much ground, but there's a strong breeze blowing against Sydney in this first half. That's McCarthy straight into the forwards. Nicely away to Coote. Coote near halfway. Schubert on the wing. Held it beautifully. Brentnall, the fullback, but no, again the referee has ruled a forward pass. This time the ball floated forward. Schubert came from behind to gather that pass, so the scrum goes down for the forward. Just in Sydney's half.
This wind is getting gustier now.
Penalty is against the Country hooker Dagwall for feet across the scrum there. Premature striking. Fulton again looking for the line. And that's a good kick by Fulton. Takes play inside the quarter on Country's end of the ground. Good kick indeed. The free kick now by Rodonicus on to Sate and then Beatson. Back to Rodonicus. Inside the Country quarter line. Sydney in an attacking position. McMartin at dummy half. That's Sate. Well stopped by Fogarty and the 5'8" Ian Martin. 12 metres out from the Country line. McMartin. Rodonicus. Out to pick up. Back to Beatson. Beatson very powerful. Not far from the line. Only about 7 or 8 metres out now. Country defence will have to be good now. That's Sate. Away to Rodonicus. Pick up. Little kick is not a good one by Rodonicus. Well picked up by Fahey. Country winger. 10 metres out from his own line. Or knocked on by Dagwall at dummy half. So we'll have the scrum 10 metres out from Country's line. Still no score in the game after 7 minutes of play.
This is a critical area here for Country, and they must use the wind to get out of here.
Steve Hewson putting the ball in the pack. But it's going to be Sydney's ball, I think, is it? No, Hewson has it. Only a few metres out from his own line. Well, it looked as if Sydney was going to win that ball, but it went back through the scrum. Knocked on by the Country dummy half. And knocked on also by Sydney. So another scrum, only about 5 or 6 metres out this time from Country's line. Hewson's ball in and out of the scrum. Country's ball. Hewson. 8 metres out from his own line. That's the lock forward, Ballasty. 15 metres out from Country's line. Dagwall now at dummy half. To Bertoldo. Still just inside the quarter, Country's end of the ground. They're gradually making ground, forcing Sydney back. Dagwall at dummy half. Long pass back to the fullback, Brentnall. Good tackle by Rodonicus, but Brentnall not held. On the Country quarter now. Brentnall, the fullback, to play it. Dagwall again at dummy half. To Morgan this time. And back nicely to Hewson. And if Hewson gets half a gap, he's a very dangerous man because he's got a tremendous change of pace and excellent speed. Fifth tackle indicated as Dagwell kicks, and that's out on the full. So the scrum will come back to where he kicked the ball just a few metres on Country side of halfway.
Well, already we've seen that Country have got some experienced players there, and they're certainly not being overawed by the situation today. And if they can get points on the board early in this half, I'm sure they'll put up a good fight today.
Country's ball, but no, the referee wants it in again. Sydney's ball, Rodonicus, held by Fahey, just in Country's half now. That's Coote. On to the winger Schubert. Schubert a few metres in Country's half. McCarthy. These big fellows are going to take some holding for 80 minutes. Much heavier than the Country team. Pick up. 12 metres short of the Country quarter line. Now it's McMartin at dummy half to Beatson. Nice little dummy from Beatson, and that's Rodonicus. Inside the quarter. Sydney well on the attack again, but that's the fifth tackle. That's pick up, Fulton, and a collision. Fulton lost it, so the knock-on is played. On the Country quarter line, still no score, 10 minutes gone. Having difficulty in getting in. Sydney pack is forcing that Country pack back. Too powerful for them. That's the fullback Fairfax up. Fairfax inside the quarter, plays it to Schubert. Sate, he's lost it. And the scrum will go down again inside the quarter line on Country's end of the ground.
Brentnall, the Country fullback, a good blindside player, so we can expect to see him coming up the blind here, and it's a good situation for him here.
And that's loose arm, Dagwell. Penalty against the Country hooker, and this is a scoring chance for Sydney, and Ray Brannigan is making his way over towards the mark, so it looks as if Brannigan is going to take the attempts at goal for the Sydney team, and he'll place the ball just outside the quarter line, and he's about 15 metres from touch, 12 to 15 metres from touch on the showground side. So he's kicking directly into the sou'wester, which is blowing, and it's quite strong.
The Sydney team will take it just a little bit of time to settle down. It's usual that when you get in a team with players from all different clubs, obviously it's a little bit strange to start with, but being most of them internationals as they are, they won't take too long to settle down. So obviously Country has got to make the most of the early moments and get right into the Sydney teams with their tackling and also with their attacking. And with this wind, they should be making as much gain out of the wind as possible, which means putting the ball down deep.
Well, we'll bring you the result of that kick from Ray Brannigan at the sports ground. It's 7:40 back to Norman May and Trevor Allen.
Now it's to Dagwell. Dagwell not far off the line, but will be held up in the sixth tackle. So the scrum will go down 5 metres from the Sydney line.
Country, when it was necessary then, showing a little bit of lack of understanding. They didn't have a definite move on, and you've got to have some sort of a move in that position.
It's an important scrum for Country. Only a few metres out from the Sydney line. And the penalty is against Sydney. Loose arm ruled against the Sydney hooker McMartin. And so here's a scoring opportunity for Country. Well, I can't see Mick Cronin coming up, can I? Yes, Mick Cronin has been given the ball. It's going to be an attempted penalty goal, and he'll place it just inside the quarter line. And he'd be about, I suppose, 20 metres out from centre field. It's not a difficult one for Cronin, and it gives him the opportunity of putting Country in front. No score at the moment, and almost 16 minutes gone.
Cronin, Ballasty, out there at 5'8", Martin, very key players here today, all with their Sydney experience. Jimmy Morgan as well, the captain. Key players today in Country's attempt to win this game, and these fellows have got to lead the newer chaps into and give good example. So we can expect to see a lot, especially from Ian Martin at 5'8". He's a devastating tackler, and that's what we need again, or that's what, I'm not biased at all, having come from the country, mind you, but I'd like to see country give a good account of themselves, and that's what they need today, someone who will repel the city players with their tackling.
Some time taken off because the ball rolled off the mark, but it's time on again now. It's Mick Cronin for country. Good looking kick, but no goal. Out to the left, over the dead ball line, so it's still 0-all. 16.5 minutes gone in the first half. Now it's Fairfax with the dropout. And he's got good distance with that one into the wind. Brentnall near his own quarter line. Back towards halfway he goes. Around Schubert. But well taken by Sate in that tackle about 8 metres from the halfway line. Dagwall. Bertoldo, he's left it behind. Regains though. 10 metres in country's half. Dagwall. Dagwall close to the halfway line. Now it's Hewson at dummy half. And through Ballasty to Morgan. Teammates at Queanbeyan. Hewson to Ballasty again. Over halfway. Look for somebody trying to get that ball away. And that's Fairfax inside the quarter line. McDonald's missed him. Good run by Fairfax. Got it away to Schubert. Held by Fahey. Back to Fairfax. And Fairfax is about 15 metres on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Now it's Fulton at dummy half. To McCarthy. McCarthy still 13 or 14 metres in Sydney's half. That's Stevens, second row forward. Just a few metres on his own side of the halfway line. The referee has not held. Stevens hesitated for a moment, thinking the referee might have ordered him to play the ball. McMartin to Rodonicus. Beatson. Fulton. Out of Morgan's tackle. Schubert. But too much defence there for the young Sydney winger. Coote. Sate. Pick up. Well taken by his opposite number, Martin. 10 metres short of the country quarter line. Fifth tackle. And that's Rodonicus. Sixth tackle. And the referee will order the scrum just outside the quarter line on country's end of the ground.
And Bobby Fulton, of course, a very critical player in the team for the city team. It's these sort of games that he really excels.
And the penalty is against country. And this is well within kicking distance again for Ray Brannigan, and the centre is coming over to attempt the goal. He's 5 or 6 metres outside the quarter line and not far this time from centre field. He'd be about 10 or 12 metres off centre field.
At this stage, I feel that country are taking a little bit too long to recover from a Sydney move. When Sydney makes some ground in a run, country all seem to be bunched in around the man playing the ball. They've got to quickly spread out, fill in, move out, or talk to each other and get an understanding whereby they know who's going to be filling in the defensive positions, whereas City are taking their time and their defensive pattern is coming as it should, but country are bunching a little bit. This spells danger, especially, as I said, if a man like Fulton or Fairfax gets the ball.
That's Ray Brannigan for Sydney with his second attempted penalty goal. He missed with the first. But he's got this one right over the black spot. 2 points to 0 in favour of Sydney. 20 minutes gone.
A very vital match, this one, of course, for future representative games, as we see that only 2 weeks from today there's a game being played against one of these first World Cup series against New Zealand. So everyone's out there is on trial today for a spot in the Australian team.
Cronin kicking out for country. That's Fairfax. Just outside his own quarter, well stopped by Bertoldo. Now Coote away to Sate. That's good defence by country. 10 metres outside the Sydney quarter line. McMartin at dummy half. Rodonicus. Beatson allowed that one to float past him, but it's Fairfax who has recovered for Sydney. Fairfax back to almost to where he was tackled previously. McMartin now to the blind side. Cronin the tackler. 12 metres on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Coote at dummy half. Beatson now. Got support coming through, but unable to get rid of it. Now he has. That's Rhodonicus. That looked dangerously close to a shepherd to me, but play on, says the referee. About 10 metres short of the halfway line. Fifth tackle, McCarthy. The kick is by Pickup, looking for touch, and he's found it, gaining good ground for Sydney. Well-judged kick by the Sydney 5'8", just short of the country quarter line.
A good kick by Pickup, and even though the flags on the buildings high up are blowing against City, the flags down on the ground seem to be blowing with them and changing around. This is the Sydney Cricket Ground corridors of air.
The ball straight through the centre tunnel. It's Hewson's ball in, and it's Hewson with the ball. Well tackled by Coote. That's Fogarty. Fogarty about 12 to 30 metres on countryside of the halfway line. Martin at dummy half. He's been there quite often, the 5'8". That's Kennedy in the centre. Peter Kennedy playing.
The numbers in the first leg of the daily double at Warwick Farm: 3, 10 and 5. 3 public service, number 10 nourishing, and 5 fine style. Progress score from the Sydney Sports Ground: New South Wales 11, leading England 7.
Morgan a few metres on Sydney side of the halfway line. Fifth tackle, Dagwall. Away to Ballasty. And that's not a bad kick either. Plenty of country players underneath it, but good take by Fairfax. He gets up a long way to catch that ball. Very safe indeed. That's Coote from dummy half. Pick up. Pick up about 10 metres outside his own quarter line. Well taken by Ian Martin. Brannigan away to McCarthy, but not a good pass. And Kennedy can't hold it. Sydney back in possession, just on Sydney's side of the halfway line. And the tackle count restarts. That's Sate. Sate just in country's half, back to Rhodonicus. And the tackler was Ballasty. That's McMartin to McCarthy. Reverse then to Pick up, and Pick up through the gap, up towards the quarter line. He's got Fulton outside, but inside it goes to McMartin, and on towards Coote, who can't hold it. Knock on. The scrum about 10 metres out from the country line.
Tackling has got to be country's main weapon against the City in this first half. They've got to get right into them and make them rather reluctant to keep coming.
Country's ball. Hewson to Martin, to Ballasty at least standing out, but the next pass, not a good one. It's Sydney in possession, but knocked on by both teams.
And if they can rattle them in defence, then City might just stay rattled for the whole of the game and give country a chance to settle down and plan some attacking moves themselves.
And the penalty is against country for moving that scrum off the mark, well away from the mark, and this is a gift for Sydney. The penalty right in front, about 12 metres out. Score is 2 points to 0 at the moment. Ray Brannigan having kicked 1 goal from his 2 previous attempts. 2-0, 25, just on 25 minutes gone.
Chris Anderson on the wing out here, just come back from overseas. He's had a very good game in the Wembley Cup over there, and he's right in line for a shot in state selection, the team being picked tomorrow night after the club games, and he'll be looking for plenty of opportunities. And he is a player, Chris Anderson, number 2 down there, who does follow and make his own opportunities. So we expect to see quite a bit of Chris Anderson for the rest of the game.
Ray Brannigan makes it 4-0 in favour of Sydney. Just over 25 minutes gone. Country once more to bring the ball back to the halfway line for the kick-off.
The man there with the ball now, Mick Cronin, a fellow who could really put some life into this game if they get the ball to him. He's very deceptive in his stride. Even that looking on the television, he looks to be going in about second gear, but in actual fact he's striding out, and that's a very deceptive stride.
Cronin kicking off again for country. A shorter one this time, varying the kick-off, and that's Stevens. Stevens about 12 metres on his own side of the halfway line. Beatson from dummy half. Tried to get that ball away, but rather too deliberately, and it was well held. McMartin out to Sate. Sate still about 8 metres in Sydney's half. Sydney 4, leading Country 0. It's McCarthy back to Rodonicus.
England have drawn level with New South Wales at the Sydney Sports Ground, 11-all after a try beside the right-hand upright.
But good tackling there by McDonald once more. McCarthy away to Fulton, but that kick is straight to Fahey on the wing. Well held, though, by Schubert, managing to stay in field. Now, that's Cronin getting in close to the ruck, looking for opportunities. Cronin, a few metres in his own half. Dagwall from dummy half, right to the halfway line. Cronin again in there, close to the ruck. But it's Dagwall at dummy half. Ballasty, dummy to Morgan, and got it away to Bertoldo, who couldn't handle it. And it's Sydney's ball, right on the halfway line. Stevens to play it. Now from the ruck out to the open. That's pick up. Pick up over the halfway line. Brannigan couldn't handle it. Picked up by Fairfax. Fairfax just in Country's half. Now through Rodonicus to Sate. Sate looking for the opening, but that's good defence by Country. Sydney backwards and forwards across field at the moment. McMartin to Beetson. Beetson makes a bit of ground. 12 or 13 metres in Country's half. McMartin at dummy half. Stevens through McCarthy, right out to Schubert on the wing. Schubert around Fahey, but good tackling by Cronin on the Country quarter line. Now that's Rodonicus, McCarthy, back to pick up. Beetson over the quarter line, lost it. Country's ball. Inside the quarter line, it's Dagwall to play it. Morgan now from dummy half. Just over the quarter line. Still 4-0 in favour of Sydney, and about 12 minutes left in this first half. And not too much has happened in this game as yet. That's Fogarty. Fogarty for Country. Dagwall again at dummy half. Back to Brentnall. Rodonicus this time fails to catch him. And that kick is well into Sydney's half. Fairfax back near his own quarter line picks it up. Has Schubert with him. Fairfax should regain. No, knocked away from him by one of the Country players. The referee has ruled knock on by McDonald.
Very good thinking then by Fairfax. There were about 5 players coming up to tackle him, but he did a smart thing, put it over the top.
The scrum is just on Sydney's side of the halfway line, but a penalty this time against Sydney for moving it off the mark. And Brentnall now will have the opportunity of taking play deep onto Sydney's end of the ground. 4-0 in favour of the quarter line. Hewson 15 metres on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Bertoldo from dummy half. Out of one tackle, got it away nicely to Dagwall. Dagwall inside the quarter line. Country on the attack now. That's Ballasty. And to Morgan.
Another converted try to the Englishman at the sports ground. England 19, leading New South Wales 11.
City seem to be going very close to infringing the offside play here in the backs, and I think that a penalty may be forthcoming here.
That's Rodonicus from the scrum base. And Sydney in that scrum makes the scrum count now 5-4 in favour of Country. 5 scrums to Country, 4 to Sydney. So Dagwall doing very well. That's McCarthy for Sydney, just outside his own quarter line. Rodonicus at dummy half. Beetson. Push Martin away, but held by Cronin, who's taken the ball away from him. Cronin over the quarter line. He's got plenty of pace. He'll score. Cronin in for the try for Country. A good try by Mick Cronin. And it's 4-3 in favour of Sydney after 31 minutes.
Well, as I said before, Cronin had a lot of experience, and that's an old trick, and I'm surprised Arthur Beetson fell for it. He took the ball off him, made good ground. There's the deceptive speed. Fullback and Anderson couldn't get near him. Great work, and here's Cronin using his head again, thinking of his fullback, doesn't put the ball down there, tries to go in a little bit further for his fullback. Great play by an experienced player.
Well, perhaps we'll see something happen now in this game. I said just a moment ago that nothing much had happened in this game as yet. Well, perhaps that will liven things up. The first try of the game to Country.
It hadn't happened either, John. It's been a pretty dull sort of a game so far, with Country containing the City team reasonably well and cutting off most attempts of moves. But that's the first piece of electric play we've seen, and possibly now we'll see a little bit of fight back from City, and also, well, that'll get the tail of the Country players up, and hopefully they'll follow Dagwell, as we saw over on the other side 2 or 3 minutes before that try. All the forwards will start following each other, and it will develop into a good tussle.
Mick Cronin will attempt the conversion of his own try. Cronin for the conversion attempt just outside the quarter, 12 metres in from touch, and that's a good kick by Mick Cronin, converting his own try, and Country hits the lead. 5-4, 8 minutes before half-time. .5-4 is the score. Deep into Country's half. And that's Ballasty, the lock forward. Just over the quarter line. Country leading by 1 point. 5-4. 7 minutes before half-time now. And that's Brentnall, the fullback. Brentnall down just outside his own quarter line. Dagwell at dummy half. That's Bertoldo. Back to Dagwell again. Fogarty this time. Back to Dagwell, and then MacDonald. MacDonald about 12 metres outside his own quarter line. Dagwell. Fogarty on the burst, and out to Morgan. Back to Bertoldo, in Sydney's half. That's Fahey on the wing, only Fairfax to beat. Can't beat him. That's Bertoldo backing up. Good play by Country, but they've lost the ball now. Sydney in possession, just outside the Sydney quarter line. Well, the game is livening up a little bit now. It was very dull for a long time, but we're seeing better football now. Sydney in possession, however. That's Stevens, a few metres outside his own quarter line. Away to McCarthy this time. Good tackle by Fogarty. Ball and all tackle. McCarthy looking for support. McMartin to pick up, and Beatson. Back to Fairfax. And Radonicus up to the halfway line he goes. Held by his opposite number, Hewson, with some assistance there also from Morgan. As pick up. Sate right on the halfway line. Beatson this time. In Country's half, looking for support. Radonicus. Back to McMartin, who wasn't expecting that one. Country's ball again. A few metres on Country side of the halfway line. Fogarty putting it high in the air, but he's the only one coming through. Fairfax. Unusual for Fairfax to drop the ball, but he's beaten Fogarty and Hewson, but won't beat Cronin. Well tackled 12 metres outside the Sydney quarter line. Coote at dummy half. Through Stevens, it's gone to McCarthy. And McCarthy trying to jump through. That could be dangerous. Caught in mid-air there by Kennedy and MacDonald. From Stevens to pick up. 10 metres outside Sydney's quarter line. Fulton held by Ballasty. Dropped by Sate. But nicely recovered by Radonicus right on the Sydney quarter line. And Sydney being made to look pretty ordinary at the moment by this Country team. Just outside the Sydney quarter line. Anderson. Well stopped. A few metres out from the Sydney quarter line. McMartin. Beatson. And I thought they'd lost it for a moment, but Pickup got it away nicely to Brannigan. Up towards halfway. Pickup again. And Schubert on the wing. But nicely stopped, just short of the halfway line. Bertoldo the tackler there. Fulton. Quite a well-placed little kick, but nice bit of work there by Hewson for Country. 12 metres outside his own quarter line. Well tackled by Fairfax. Now that's Brentnall, the Country fullback. And Brentnall is about 15 metres on Country side of the halfway line. 4 minutes before half-time. Country leading 5-4. Kennedy back to Dagwell. And Dagwell's about 8 metres short of the halfway line. Morgan at dummy half for Country. Ballasty. Well stopped by Fulton and Stevens. Bertoldo at dummy half. Morgan. Oh, and Fogarty not expecting that one, but he's regained the ground that he lost, and that's the 5th tackle. 10 metres on country side of the halfway line. Cronin at dummy half. And it's Coote in possession for Sydney. Coote a few metres on his own side of the halfway line. It's Anderson. Brentnall the tackler. And from McMartin to Rodonicus. Pick up. Fulton. Brannigan. Good tackling by country. Steve McDonald, the second rower, out there to stop that movement. Rodonicus. Knocked on by Sate. And it's country's ball. Now that's Bertoldo. Cronin looking for the reverse pass then, but Bertoldo unable to get it away. And it's Cronin at dummy half. A few metres on country side of halfway. Cronin. Still a few metres in country's half. Dagwell at dummy half now for the country. Ballasty. Back to Fogarty. The game quietened down a lot again now. Nobody making much progress. Dagwell. Morgan. And the Sydney fence very, very tight at the moment. Dagwell again at dummy half. Ballasty. Oh, took that ball nicely, but then lost it on the ground. Wasn't a good pass from Dagwell. A little bit far forward for Ballasty. Knock on both teams. Less than 2 minutes now from half-time. Country leading by 5 points to 4. Country's ball, and Hewson obstructed there by his own lock forward. Now that's Bertoldo. Ballasty at dummy half. Martin to Morgan, and back then to Hewson. Hewson just over the halfway line. That's Martin out to Ballasty. Fogarty. Fogarty right on halfway. Country 5 leading Sydney 4, approaching half-time. That's Ballasty again to Bertoldo and Dagwell. Nice little run by Dagwell. Got it away to Cronin. Cronin has beaten Brannigan, but again mishandled. This is about 8 metres out from Sydney's quarter line. McCarthy held by Steve McDonald. That's Stevens. Stevens 12 metres on Sydney's side of the halfway line. Half-time coming up in less than a minute as Sydney try to make progress. Fairfax away to Sate. Sate into country's half. Back it goes to Pickup, and then Fulton. Fulton well held, but standing up, got it away to Rodonicus, and he's caught by the same tackler, Ballasty. Well, that's not good football. Very poor football by Sydney. Coote. Held by McDonald and Morgan, and fisticuffs, Coote and Morgan. Well, perhaps the game needs something like that, Les, to stir up these players.
Yes, a couple of old teammates there, Ron Coote and Jimmy Morgan, both former players of South Sydney, maybe airing a few grievances that a few old-time. Or they may have been just having a friendly chat there, being old teammates. You never know, but they did seem to be getting a little bit energetic about it.
Yes, I wouldn't like to participate in too many chats like that. Coote and Morgan. And the penalty goes against Morgan, following the touch judge's report. And here's a chance for Ray Brannigan to put Sydney in front at half-time by 1 point. It's 5-4 in favour of country at the moment. And this is not a difficult one for Brannigan. He's right in front, in centre field, and he's, well, from the 22-metre line, he'd be another 14 metres, so that places him 36 metres out and right in front.
Well, the country team have been playing well both in attack and defence, and we don't usually see them play all that well in attack, but I think the key reason for this has been that Dagwell, with his clever dummying, with his clever ball handling, has commanded a little bit of respect, and this is giving him a few yards to move in. and therefore the Sydney players haven't come up on him as quickly as they should be doing. They're giving him a little bit of latitude at dummy half, and he's able to get his pass away or run on his own.
Brannigan with the opportunity of putting Sydney in front at half-time, but he's missed it. Out to the left and over the dead ball line, so the half-time break will be taken with Country Firsts 5 leading Sydney Firsts 4. They're slow getting back into position. That's Stevens over the halfway line. Just in Country's half. Country 5, Sydney 4. Sate, Rodonicus, pick up. Beatson on the burst. Takes play just into Country's half. But good Country defence. McMartin to Rodonicus, pick up. Coote, Schubert on the wing. He's got a little bit of room. Cronin after him, and will take him just inside the Country quarter line. Fulton at dummy half. Brentnall scampering across field after that one, but it's out to the wing, and that's White, and I think it's the first time that winger White has touched the ball in this game. White inside his own quarter line. Brentnall to MacDonald. Now that's Fogarty. Fogarty back to his own quarter line. Country's end of the ground. Dagwall makes more ground for Country, about 10 metres. Back to Brentnall again. Brentnall looking for the line this time, but it's out on the full, just over the touchline on the full. So the scrum will go back to close to the quarter line, Country's end of the ground.
Country's chances in this half will depend on whether they can tackle as they did in the first half and keep Sydney disorganised as they did then. They've got to all get up together and take advantage of the situation that Sydney find themselves in at the moment. They haven't been able to settle down. They haven't been able to, well, work their moves. They've had, if anything, they've been a little bit insecure with their moves, and this is due mainly to the ability of the Country players, but they've got to sustain this now if they're going to stay in the game, particularly with this breeze at the back of Sydney now, and well, you can be sure that it'll be used to effect if they find themselves in trouble. So Country, a lot of tackling to do in this half, but also they've got to attack, and this is via the medium of Alan Dagwall, who has played very well so far, and he's the one to start the attacking moves. And on the other side, well, Country have got to keep Arthur Beatson quiet, even though Beatson figured, rather unfortunately for him, in Country's try when the ball was stolen from him. He's the man that Sydney will start any of their moves from. So Country have got to get up and keep Artie Beatson very, very quiet.
Now Brannigan again with the opportunity of putting Sydney in front. It's 5-4 in favour of Country, and Brannigan has missed the goal again over the dead ball line, so the dropout will follow from the Country quarter line. And this is Brentnall making the dropout. Fairfax beautifully picked up down towards halfway. Must have the safest pair of hands in Sydney football at the moment, Fairfax. That's Sate right on halfway. McMartin to Rodonicus, pick up, Coote. Good tackling by Country. That's Martin effecting that tackle. Beatson over halfway. Cronin again trying to steal the ball from him, but Beatson not having any of that this time. Rodonicus to pick up. Fulton, Brannigan. Good tackle by Kennedy. Great tackle by the Country centre. That's pick up. Fulton. Slips it away to Anderson. And it's Country in possession. Looks like Martin, is it? Can't see him properly yet. Getting up to play the ball. That was Hewson. Brentnall. Brentnall about 8 metres short of the halfway line now. Still in Country's half. Dagwall. Out to Fahey. And a good run by Fahey. Beat Schubert nicely. up to the quarter line. Dagwell looking for the pass inside, but the winger unable to get it away. Dagwell at dummy half. Bertoldo. Ballasty well held just inside the quarter. Sydney's into the ground. Country on the attack now. Hewson got it away well to McDonald. McDonald about 12 metres out on the fifth tackle. Bertoldo, plenty of support, but he won't get it away. Good defence by Sydney. He slips it away, but too late. Yes, it's gone out to Hewson. I thought he was well held in the tackle. That's Morgan forced to the ground in the sixth tackle, and the scrum a few metres out from the Sydney line.
Well, Dagwell and Hewson both starting to figure prominently in the attacking play by Country now, and they are two very important players.
Sydney's ball. And good tackle by Hewson. That's Stevens, 10 metres out from his own line. Raudonikis, Beatson, and Coote backing up very, very close to the prop forward. Raudonikis just over the quarter line, stopped by McDonald. Coote to Fulton, using the wind, but it's out on the full.
That's 3 times players have tried to find touch over in that corner from just broken play, and the ball's gone out. So the breeze must be going very strongly into that corner and carrying the ball out each time.
Sydney's ball again. Raudonikis to Coote. Back to Sate. That's 10 metres outside the Sydney quarter line. Oh, knock on by McCarthy.
Well, these are very vital scrums now. Those 2 that were just lost by Country could have been just about changing points of the game if they'd have won. Country need the ball now, and they need a try. So up to Dagwell, the hooker.
Country's ball. Hewson to Martin. Nicely cut out one play. That's Brentnall from fullback. Back to Martin. Kennedy, well taken by Pickup. Right on the Sydney quarter line. Country on the attack. That's Brentnall. And out to Hewson. And back to Cronin. Cronin nearly there. He's lost it right on the line. Knock on with Bertoldo picking up in goal. But that looked good for Country for a moment.
Sydney really getting stretched out now, and this might be what they need to wake them up.
The penalty is against Raudonikis. Against Raudonikis, and here's a chance for 2 more points for the Country team. Mick Cronin to take the kick, and this will be a goal attempt with Country leading Sydney by 5 points to 4.
Both the Country centres are proving very good players so far in this game. We've seen both Cronin and Kennedy tackle well, and they both back each other up very well. We haven't heard too much of Kennedy, but he's a very interesting player there, especially the way he's cut down the Sydney centres on a couple of occasions. And well, as far as Cronin goes, well, he's certainly probably been the man of the match from Country's point of view to date. He's up there all the time, urging his players on, and scored that very good try.
5-4, Country leading. We're almost 9 minutes into the second half. This is a difficult one for Cronin. He's 10 metres in from touch, kicking into the wind. It's a good-looking kick, though. It's a great goal. 7-4 in favour of Country, 9 minutes into the second half.
Well, 7-4 against a Sydney team such as this is no problem whatsoever for the Sydney team. But Country have the ability, I feel, to keep the score at that or even go further ahead if they get up and make the tackles and keep Sydney in a bustled condition that they're in at the moment. Sydney, on the other hand, have got to settle down.
Brannigan kicking off. That's the fullback Brentnall just over his own quarter line. Dagwell at dummy half to Bertoldo. Dagwell again. Back to Cronin, and Cronin this time looking for the line. Fairfax after it, but that's a great kick by Cronin. An excellent kick indeed, and he has succeeded where others have failed to find touch with a long kick on that side of the field. Taking play almost to the quarter line on Sydney's end of the ground. And it's going to be a country ball. Hewson to Martin. Got the ball away nicely, and that's a very good run by country. Hewson only 10 metres short of the line. Back to, missed by Ballasty, but picked up there by Bertoldo. 10 metres out from the Sydney line. Hewson looking for the line himself, and he's through. It's a good try by the country half, and that makes it 10 points to 4 in favour of country.
Very determined effort here by Hewson. Just put his head down, ducked round a couple of tackles there. I couldn't exactly see who missed him. There it is. It's Sate, went too high. Bad tackling by Sate. Pick up, went low, didn't get him. Hewson, very determined effort. A great effort there by Hewson.
What a strong young fellow this Hewson is. Very strong indeed. Powerfully built for a man of his size. And able to pull out of those tackles close to the line.
Hewson underwent some minor surgery earlier the week too, and was doubtful at one stage whether or not he'd take his place on the field. He had some finger trouble and was in hospital under anaesthetic having some treatment on it. So he's done very well to come back only 4 or 5 days later and be leading country so well, and well, just playing such an excellent game with him.
Cronin attempting the conversion from in front and raises the flags, and it's 12 points to 4 in favour of New South Wales country firsts.
Well, if Sydney couldn't get interested in the game in the first half because of lack of interest, well, they should be now.
And now as Brannigan prepares to kick off, we have Paul Sate leaving the field. Paul Sate, Sydney second row forward, coming off, and Ray Higgs coming on in place of him as Brannigan kicks off. And that's Brentnall. Brentnall back towards his own quarter line. Strong tackling from McMartin and beats him there inside the quarter. Dagwall. And Fogarty will go down right on his own quarter line. Dagwall again at dummy half now for country. Away to Bertoldo. Bertoldo just over the quarter line, held by Beatson. Dagwall. Morgan got it away to Ballasty. He's lost it though. Sydney's ball now. Anderson in possession just in his own half. And that's Higgs. Higgs not far from touch. Held by Hewson. Rodonicus, pick up. McCarthy. That country defence swarming around the Sydney players now. That's Rodonicus. Rodonicus about 12 metres on country side of the halfway line. McCarthy at dummy half. Pick up. Beatson. Got it away. That's Stevens. Stevens about 10 metres short of the country quarter line. Country 12 leading Sydney 4. Rodonicus to Beatson and reversed to McCarthy. Coote. Fulton. Out to Brannigan. And there's Hubert on the wing. Got it away inside again to Fulton. And he's lost it in the tackle. Still Sydney's ball. A knockback. That's Brannigan. Brannigan just inside the quarter. 5th tackle indicated. Coote to Rodonicus. Pick up. Beatson. Fairfax coming in looking for it, but it's McCarthy. And now the long one out to Anderson. Well picked up. And he's drawn away from one tackler, but not Fogarty. Loose pass. And that's the 6th tackle. The scrum to go down a few metres outside the country quarter line.
So the shock that country are so far in front now has obviously got Sydney into a frame of mind where they're going to fight back. So we'll see a great game from here on in, I'm sure.
The scrum just outside the country quarter line. And is it country's ball, or has Rodonicus beaten Hewson to it? Yes, Rodonicus has it. Now that's Coote. Coote close to the country quarter line. Higgs now in at dummy half for Sydney. Former Queensland player. Represented Queensland State last year. That's Fulton. Fulton on the country quarter line. Well stopped by McDonald and Martin. From McMartin it went to Rodonicus. Good defence by country. McMartin again at dummy half. Back nicely to Fulton, but he can't handle it. Knock on. "15 minutes gone in the second half. Country 12, Sydney 4. Sydney's ball. And that's Coote. Out to Anderson. Anderson just inside the quarter line. McMartin. Rodonicus. Pick up. Fulton. And he's well marked. Well marked every time he touches the ball. Fulton just outside the quarter line. Through Stevens to Higgs. And Higgs runs hard and straight. That's right on the country quarter line. Stevens to Rodonicus. Pick up. Coote unable to pick it up from his toes. That's Anderson. Anderson just short of the quarter line. Not held. Beaten Ballasty, but won't beat McDonald. That's a good tackle by the country second row forward. Mishandled by Fairfax, and the referee wants a scrum. Just inside the quarter line, country's end of the ground, country 12, Sydney 4.
Well, everything's going wrong for City now, and it's mainly because of country's good tackling. So City now should be looking at the possibility of putting the ball in the air and getting after it that way.
Country's ball. Brentnall out to the blind side. Got it away well to Kennedy. And McDonald unable to handle it, or Houston unable to handle it, but well picked up by White. White just in a touch from that tackle by Stevens, just short of the halfway line. This will be Sydney's ball. Rodonicus, pick up, back to Rodonicus. But good tackling by Martin. Anticipated that double around very well indeed. And Martin tackles again. Morgan, the ball to be played by McCarthy. Pick up, Coote. Well stopped by Kennedy. Higgs a dummy half, just in country's half. Held by Fogarty. Now about 12 metres short of the country quarter line. Beatson. Coote. Again, good country defence. That's the fifth tackle. Beatson. Over the quarter line he goes. Coote backing up nicely inside the quarter. He's got support. Rodonicus. Rodonicus out of the tackle. And he's got two players with hold it. Brannigan regains for Sydney. But that's the sixth tackle, and the scrum will go down inside the country quarter line.
Sydney certainly can't put it together at all here today, so I think if they're going to get into the game, it'll be either that ball in the air or an individual effort by Fairfax or one of their individual players.
Houston, I don't know how that happened, but Houston was hit then as he put the ball in the scrum, I'm sure accidentally. But now there's a penalty against Sydney for collapsing the scrum. And let's see where Houston is. Houston's on the ground. Now here's Sydney on the move. McCarthy out to pick up. But pick up about 12 metres out from the line. Pick up now. Back to Rodonicus. And McCarthy. McCarthy charging up the line. And it's Fulton. Fulton held about 5 metres out. That's Stevens, a dummy half. Rodonicus, pick up. Back to Beatson on the burst. And an interception by Cronin. Cronin in possession just inside his own quarter line. Anticipated the Beatson pass beautifully. And that's Fogarty from dummy half. Fogarty just inside his own quarter. Ballasty now at dummy half. To Dagwell. And out to Fahey on the wing. Fahey just over the quarter line. Well held by Schubert. That's Dagwell to Bertoldo. Stevens, the tackler, a few metres outside the quarter line, country's end of the ground, and country still holding that 12-4 lead with 20 minutes left. That's Morgan. Lost. It went forward. So the scrum 10 metres outside the quarter line, country's end of the ground.
Well, Arthur Beatson getting involved a lot more now in the defensive work. He's realising that they've got to do something to get points on the board, and he's doing a lot more work than he usually does with Eastern Suburbs.
penalty again goes against Country for collapsing that scrum. The penalty about 8 metres outside the Country quarter line, 20 metres in from touch. And what's going to happen? Fulton is going to kick for touch. Well, I think City has got to apply the pressure now and keep it on Country. And Fulton finds the line right on the Country quarter line. McMartin with the free kick. Coote, Beatson. And that's McCarthy on the burst, just over the quarter line. So Sydney on the attack once more. McMartin, Rhodonicus, pick up. Pick up just inside the quarter. Stevens now at dummy half. Beatson. Can't get it away this time, can he? Yes, he does. And that's Fulton. Fulton well inside the quarter. Schubert for the corner. And has he scored or has he bounced it? The referee is ordering a goal line dropout. Knock on in goal by Schubert. Didn't get that ball down cleanly. Let's have a look at it again.
Certainly bounced the ball well and truly about a foot off the ground. I'm sure he did.
Well, let's watch it very closely. He reaches for the line. Shows a lot of pace. Brentnall coming across forward in cover. Oh, he definitely lost the ball and it hit the ground short of the line too. So good defence by Country, and that's the long drop out by Brentnall into the wind, right back over the halfway line. What a good kick that is. Schubert now, back towards the halfway line. Well marked. Just inside the Country half now. Schubert to play it. Higgs to McMartin and onto Stevens. McMartin again. About 12 metres short of the Country quarter line. So Sydney getting back into an attacking position now. Rhodonicus to pick up and Fulton. Fulton stopped by Cronin and Martin. Rhodonicus a dummy half. Stevens. Reverse to Beatson. Out of one tackle. Two. Held by Steve McDonald. Got it back to Higgs. Higgs almost on the quarter line. Now Rhodonicus a dummy half. Pick up. Reverse to McCarthy. Inside the quarter. Rhodonicus backing up. Well stopped though. Good defence by Country. That's the fifth tackle about 12 to 15 metres out from the line. Sydney still on the attack. Rhodonicus hurt, but play goes on. McCarthy. Knocked down by Morgan, and there'll be a penalty to Sydney. McCarthy knocked down by Morgan. Let's have a look at it again. Morgan did certainly drop McCarthy, but well, it was a hairline decision. There's McCarthy, the kick, and Morgan puts the hip into him. But McCarthy, I think, half ran into Morgan anyway.
Actors' equity, I think, John.
Yeah. Well, here's the chance now for Brannigan to put 2 more points on the board for Sydney from right in front.
Country seem to be slacking a little now with their tackling, and Sydney are also putting it together a little bit more. They're passing the ball better, they're standing deeper and running onto the ball. So can Country sustain their tackling that they've been doing to date? Well, that's the question. That'll tell the answer of the game.
Now it's Brannigan attempting the goal for Sydney. And he's raised the flags, narrowing the lead. It's 12-6 in favour of Country with about 16 minutes left.
Brentnall comes into his own now, I feel, for Country. He's the man that can drive Sydney right back onto their own try line. Even with the wind against him, he can still keep this ball low. He keeps it low whenever he kicks and he's into the wind, and he can still send the ball about 50 metres against the wind. So
there's, excuse me, Les, Tommy Rhodonicus coming off the field. I said a little while ago that he had been hurt. Well, he's limping towards the dressing room as Mick Cronin kicks off for Sydney, and that's an unusual one from Beatson. Kicking the ball back to his supports. That's Pickup. Out of one tackle, but not the second. Caught by Dagnall and Hewson, not far from the halfway line. Now that's Beatson. Beatson over halfway. Fairfax coming through looking for it, but Beatson unable to get it away. That's Higgs this time. Higgs about 10 metres in Country's half. Country leading by 12 points to 6. That's Pickup. Fulton, and through Morgan to Coote, through McCarthy to Coote at least. Got a good shoulder tackle there, but it's hurt the tackler. McCarthy looking for it, knock on. And I think that player on the ground might be Fogarty, who put the shoulder into the Sydney player. Certainly stopped him, but it hurt Fogarty.
I think
he's receiving attention.
Kennedy also went in there, and he's on the ground as well. So a rather unfortunate tackle for the country players. I think they both must have got shocks on the point of their shoulder, which can be very painful.
Well, it's country doing it very well at the moment, holding on to that lead of 12 points to 6, tackling very well indeed.
Sydney are coming back into it, and here, for sure, possession is vital, and country haven't had too much possession in the last 5 or 10 minutes, and they've got to get the ball from the scrum and hang on to it now.
The attendance, by the way, at the cricket ground, 17,743. Pickup has gone to scrum half for Sydney. Pickup at scrum half, and we have on the field Withers at 5/8. Jeff Withers, who played in the Sydney seconds team at 5/8. Pickup at scrum half. And it's country's ball. Hewson about 10 metres short of the halfway line. Plays it back to Martin, and then through Balestier went to Bertoldo. Bertoldo 10 metres short of the halfway line.
Now to Warwick Farm for the second leg.
Now it's Cronin from in front. And he puts 2 more points on the board for country, and it's 14 points to 6 in favour of country with 12 minutes left. So time is running out for Sydney. Just 12 minutes in which to make up that leeway of 8 points.
Sydney need the big kick now down deep and contain country in their own quarter for a while for the 5 tackles, and then put the attack on themselves.
Brannigan kicking off for Sydney. Steve McDonald for country. Takes the tackle about 13 or 14 metres in his own half. Dagwell at dummy half. Bertoldo. 10 metres from the halfway line. Dagwell out to Balestier, and knocked on out there in the by Jim Morgan, running as a centre then for country, and Bob O'Reilly is on the sideline, and so too is Steve Rogers. So we could see a change. We could see changes in the, or at least Mark Harris. I said Bob O'Reilly. Mark Harris, of course, out on the sideline, and Steve Rogers. So we could see some more changes in the Sydney team. Yes, Ray Brannigan's coming off, and so is Schubert. We've got Rogers going into the centre, and Mark Harris, and both had big games in the first match this afternoon. Now that's Fulton right on the halfway line. Anderson at dummy half. Away to Withers right on the halfway line. Now it's Steve Rogers at dummy half. So obviously Sydney looking for a bit of penetration, which has been lacking in the team so far, and Rogers really had a great game against country seconds. Now it's gone out to Fulton in the centre. Fulton down towards the country quarter line. Anderson on the wing. Hewson there to tackle. Great cover tackle by Hewson, the country half. And I think the ball might have been lost in that.
England coming away from New South Wales at the sports ground, now leading by 29 points to 18.
Coote has lost it. And it's country in possession. Kennedy onto the ball about 10 metres out from his own line. Cronin at dummy half. Standing in the tackle. Martin for country inside his own quarter line. Dagwell up to the quarter line for country. Martin at dummy half. And through Balestier has gone to Morgan. Hit by Beetson. He's lost the ball, but it's back to country. Country still in possession. Hewson just outside his own quarter line, and that's White from the wing. 10 metres out from country's quarter line. Dagwell to the blind side. Knocked down by Beetson about 12 metres from halfway. Bertoldo at dummy half. Morgan. Ball forced back in a strong tackle there by Higgs, and that's the 6th tackle The scrum to be set 12 metres out from the country quarter line.
Country need only to retain this ball, keep it amongst themselves for the next 10 minutes.
They've lost the scrum. Sydney's ball. And is played by Withers. Pass to Pickup and then to McCarthy. McCarthy down 10 metres short of the country quarter line. Higgs at dummy half. Pickup. Reverse to Beatson. He'll get it away again. Fairfax. And Cronin almost took it away from him, but Fairfax gets it away to Harris. Harris on the wing. Pulled down by Kennedy. Good tackle just inside the country quarter line. Coote at dummy half. And that's Rogers. Fulton pick up and out to Withers. Withers inside the quarter line. Stopped by the country defence, which has been very sound. McMartin back towards Stevens. Stevens out of a couple of tackles. Only 10 metres out from the line. Back to Higgs. And Higgs is close. Held by Bertoldo and winger Fahey. Back in the fifth tackle it comes. And out through Withers to McCarthy and then on to Coote. Coote has beaten a tackle by Ballasty and he's in. A try by Coote. Beat his opposite number Ballasty. And scores Sydney's first try to make it 14-9 in favour of country.
Well, it was just a matter of time the way Sydney have been throwing the ball around the last 2 or 3 minutes. They've got new life in them. Good quick passes. All the country players were bunched in around the play of the ball. So Coote did very well to retain or to get that ball back. Then it was a matter of him evading one tackle as we see there, and he has got speed still, Ronnie Coote. He goes very well, and he knew where to go. So country starting to...
And at the sports ground, New South Wales over for a try in the corner through prop Steve Finane. Brown converted. England 29, New South Wales 24, and the full-time bell has just gone. Full-time, England 29, New South Wales 24.
There is Brian Anderson, former North Sydney player and, of course, former Kiwi representative, New Zealand representative, Brian Anderson. He's come on and it looks as if Driver, who came on as a replacement earlier, is going off. This is a very important kick for Steve Rogers. 14 points to 9 the score. This is not an easy one for Steve Rogers. And he's kicked it wide, out to the right, no goal. And so it's still 14 points to 9 in favour of country with 6 minutes left.
Well, country, this last 6 minutes, if ever they've tackled, they've got to tackle now, and they've got to go up uniformly. It's no good all of them, or one or two of them going up in kamikaze style. They've all got to go up together, keep a straight line, and then the only way the opposition can get through is one of the tackles being broken. So they've got to get up together in a straight line.
Mick Cronin of country placed in the ball. The referee has called time off as Cronin was taking over long to place the ball. Cronin for the country. Just over the quarter line, and he's found touch. That's a bad mistake by Sydney. Both Coote and Anderson stood off that one. And Cronin has found touch inside the Sydney quarter line. And the scrum to go down with a little more than 5 minutes left. And a penalty against Sydney, moving the scrum off the mark. Cronin from 10 metres in, obviously will attempt a penalty goal now. Only 5 minutes of time remaining, and country in front by 5 points.
Well, if Cronin can put the 2 points on the board from this one, it'll really knock the stuffing right out of the Sydney team, and besides that, he'll take probably 2 to 3 minutes, being an old experienced hand at delaying tactics, a real professional, having a couple of tours behind him, so you can guarantee that he'll take a few moments to take this kick. Even if he misses this kick and country find themselves in a position where they are at the moment, a very valuable thought in Houston's mind, or one of the players around the ruck, would be a one-pointer field goal that we saw Eric Sims kick last week, which wasn't quite sufficient, but this is a completely different situation. They only need that 1 point to get in front. If they can get that point, well, the game's over. If he kicks this one, I feel the game's over for Sydney.
Well, Cronin's had a lot of trouble placing the ball for his goal attempts. The wind making it a little bit awkward, perhaps. Now Mick Cronin with the most important kick for country. Could be a 7 points margin. No, he's missed it. Out to the right. No goal. Still 5 points between the teams. 14-9 in favour of country first, and we're inside the last 5 minutes now. Now the drop out by Harris. It's a long one. Well back over the halfway line. Well taken by Brentnall. Brentnall back towards halfway. Well, that's a solid tackle there from Mark Harris. Hewson. And he's gone right through them. Good run by Hewson. Only the fullback left, but he won't beat Fairfax. A good tackle by Fairfax inside the Sydney quarter. And that's Dagwell at dummy half. Got it away to Fahey. Fahey down about 12 metres out from the line. Dagwell. Bertoldo. Bertoldo looks for the line, but held up about 10 metres out. Now it's Dagwell at dummy half again. To Martin. And on to Cronin. Cronin not far out. Held in the tackle, can't get it away. That's the 5th tackle now. And Dagwell from dummy half looks for the line himself, but the referee will order the scrum now. 6th tackle on country. About 3.5 minutes left, and it's 14-9 in favour of country.
What a situation for that match-winning field goal that is now. Just 1 point, and Sydney can't possibly score twice.
Scrum screwing badly, and it's country's ball, and he's over. Yes, it looks like Ballasty, is it, or Martin? Wait till he gets up. Can't see him properly. It was John Ballasty. John Ballasty standing off the scrum then. The ball had actually come out and was kicked towards Ballasty.
Just a little bit of loose play. Ballasty right on the spot, picked the ball up very cleanly. A good exercise in picking the ball up there, no trouble at all. Coote anticipating the man going the other way with the ball, missed the tackle, and Ballasty found the goal line.
Well, that one certainly sews it up for country. 17 points to 9 the score in favour of country. 2.5 minutes left, and Cronin to attempt the conversion of Ballasty's try.
Well, that certainly is much better than a field goal. It looks much better as well, but a good try there. Country certainly deserved the win. City didn't get going in the first half. They've got going once or twice in the second half. All in all, it's been a combination, I feel, of country's ability to get up and knock them over early in the game. They didn't get started, and now in the second half, well, they just haven't allowed them into the game again.
Mick Cronin now attempting to make it 19-9, and he's done it. 10 points between the teams. New South Wales country first, 19. Sydney first, 9, and about 2 minutes left.
Sydney have obliged, of course, with some rather indifferent sort of play and individual play. And the try that they did score was about the only time that period was about the only time they put it together. But, well, Sydney have been very disappointing today, and country have taken full advantage of their indifference.
Mark Harris kicking off for Sydney. A long one indeed. That's the winger White. Back to his own quarter line. Now it's Dagwell at dummy half. Oh, that's solid tackling by Stevens and McMartin on Brian Anderson, who replaced Leo Driver earlier. But lost now by country. Sydney's chance, but too late to win the game. But can they save a bit of face now in these dying moments of the game? Stevens at dummy half, 12 metres out from the country quarter line. Pick up. Beatson. And that's Higgs. Back to Fulton. Caught by White and Hewson. Close to the touchline. Now it's on to Beatson. Standing in the tackle, Higgs. Higgs not far from the country quarter line. Time running out as the ball goes to pick up. And onto Withers. Well tackled, a few metres short of the country quarter line. Good tackling by Martin. Now that's pick up. He'll be stopped by Kennedy and Anderson, still a few metres from the country quarter line. Time almost up. And there's the siren, in fact, as McCarthy puts the ball high in the air. Across field, it's going to be out on the full. Yes, out on the full. And so the game is all over. And New South Wales Country First have beaten Sydney by 19 points to 9. The scoring details. For Country, tries to Cronin, Hewson and Ballasty, and Mick Cronin finished with 5 goals from 7 attempts. For Sydney, Ron Coote